All right, guys, welcome back to our series of our top four teams from every conference that could win their conference. And for today's video, we're going to what is easily 2024's most interesting conference. You could go so many directions for this top four, maybe not for number one, but two through four wide open. So, Chase, I want to hear from you. Where are you leaning on Big 12's top four teams for 2024?
Yeah, dude, this one's, I want to say it's the easiest, but it also might be the hardest. That makes no sense, guys. But number one for me easily is Utah. Cam Rising's back. Kyle Whittingham, I absolutely love him as a coach. I think he's like one of two longest tenured coaches now after Nick Saban retired. And Rick Stockstill out of MTSU was let go this offseason. So that's awesome there. But I think Utah is one of the strongest teams. You look at this past year, and if you're a statistical guy or you're going to look at record and say, "Hey, this team sucked," look at how they played last year. They had to, I think they went through three quarterbacks at one point. Still put in a lot of great wins. Their defense is always super tough to get around, and this is just a resilient team year after year. My goodness, your quarterback is for the first 7 weeks. Hey, he might play. He also might be in the hospital dying. We don't know. And then through those 7 weeks, um, it's you're churning out wins, you're churning out close losses, and it's something that it's just uncanny to see. You should have been a 5-7 team last year, a 6-16, barely going bowling, but instead you end up 9-3, have an outside shot at the Pac-12 championship in its final year. So Utah, by and far and away, should be the strongest team and is definitely the strongest brand heading into the new look Big 12 this year. Definitely without Texas and Oklahoma. Number two for me, I'm going to go with the ones that have been a staple, Kansas State. I think the Wildcats are obviously ones that have been in the Big 12 championship year after year. I think they are a really great team. They do lose Will Howard here, but I think they, again, are kind of like Utah. They are just very resilient, very tough. Looks like they should lose a lot of these games, but they're just not going to. And Kansas State also, is one that's kind of like Oklahoma State. They just stick around. They have a weird loss early on or a couple losses, and then all of a sudden in the back half of the season, they're winning a couple games, and then they're sitting there. If somebody loses, they jump into the Big 12 championship. Three for me is going to be Kansas. This team just signed Leopold to a huge contract. They have got to put together a full healthy season from their quarterback. If they can do that, this team's going to be really good. 8-4, 9-3, potentially even a 10-win team from Kansas if they can be healthy. The only times we've seen them start going downhill a little bit is when Jalen Daniels gets hurt, and then they have to put in their backup for half the season, and then they lose a couple games that they shouldn't. And then finally, four. This one kind of angers me because I don't want to put Oklahoma State here just because, again, kind of like Kansas State, Oklahoma State always has a weird outside shot to win these games and to get into the Big 12 championship. So for me, that's my four. I feel like we're all going to be around the same thing, but I would love for you guys to expand more. So, Fred, what do you have?
Yeah, so number one, obviously, I have Utah as well. They're one of the most consistent teams over the past 10 years of any team in college football. Coming in, and like you mentioned, Cam Rising didn't know if he was dying in a hospital or if he was going to play. That was kind of funny. But finally, he is healthy. And coming back for his 12th season of college. I think he's going to be a doctor or something. So he's almost finished that program by this point. But Utah won. I have Oklahoma State too. And, same situation. They always seem to hang in there. Kansas State at 3. Again, one of those teams that they're always consistently top 2 or top 3 or 4 in the conference. And with Texas and Oklahoma leaving and no real huge powerhouse besides Utah coming in, I still see them staying in that top 3 or 4. So that's why they are my number 3. And then at 4, I have Kansas. Same thing, just like you mentioned, Chase. They've been right there the past couple of years. And then quarterback gets injured. They lose 2 or 3 in a row, and then the season's over. So hopefully everybody can stay healthy. And now that they're actually putting in more money into the football program with a new stadium, up in the budget for assistant coaches, and paying the head coach more money, I think that they have to. They have to do something this year. And if they don't, then that's a bad sign moving forward. I really wanted to put West Virginia in here, though, simply because
too.
that would be like a dark horse team. Texas Tech was my dark horse team last year. That didn't pan out. So I'm not going to ride high on one of those super dark horse teams like I did a year ago and be completely wrong. So, Quinn, to you.
All right, guys. So I'm a little different. I stopped and I thought on it. Like, let's get this out of the way. Number one's Utah. You look at the conference. I think there are 3 teams that are elite program building teams. That's Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Utah. Those 3 teams are going to consistently be in the picture. Where they are in the picture might change, but they're going to consistently be there. So when I look at those 3, I'm going to address Oklahoma State right off the bat. They're out of the picture for me. I think they're going to have a slip off season this year. They had the miraculous run on the back end of last year. I think it's hard for them to rebound that. They also have a lot of turnover going into this season in relative to a team that functions the way they do. So I think Oklahoma State's going to fall out of the top 4 this season. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I still think they'll be top half of the conference, but I don't think they're going to crack that top 4. Utah's my number 1. As far as Kansas State, they're my number 3. I think Kansas State's going to have a pretty solid season, but that leaves the 2 spot and the 4 spot open. At number 4, I'm going to give some love to UCF. I think UCF is going to have their first breakout season as a Big 12 team in 2024. I am a firm believer that the Knights are going to make a move this season. I think they have a huge coaching edge over most teams in the conference. And I think you're going to see that schematically anyway. And I think you see that really break through this season. But for my number 2 team, this is a team that I've thought on it for a long time. And I'm willing to make the Texas Tech mistake that Freddie made last year with the West Virginia Mountaineers as my number 2 team. I am riding high on the momentum of West Virginia going into 2024. As far as Kansas goes, I like Kansas. I'm just not going to put them in the top 4 because I just am afraid they're going to keep having the same issues they have every year, which is they're not super deep yet. They need more time to build their program.
Mhm.
So when an injury happens, they just fall off a cliff. And until they can build up some depth in their roster, that's going to keep being a problem for the Jayhawks. So I think they'll barely miss out on that top 4 as well. But yeah, my list goes Utah number 1. They should easily win the conference. West Virginia number 2. I think they have a huge year this year, building off of last year and start repairing the image of Neil Brown. I like Kansas State at number 3. They're going to be a consistent force in the Big 12. And I like UCF to make a huge move inside the Big 12's ranks in 2024 as my number 4 team.
Dude, I love the Mountaineers. I love the
Oh, yeah.
Mountaineers. I love
Oh,
them.
yeah. But that'll do it for today's top 4 teams of the Big 12. Make sure you check out the SEC video, the Big 10 video, like, comment, subscribe. Check out our ACC video that'll be coming out later in the week.